Okay. Okay, we're recording now, so just be careful. So good morning, everybody. Glad to see you
Morning.
all. Missed you all last week, but it sounds like you had a good meeting anyway. I'm not sure if that's good that you could go on without me.
Mark did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Let me see who's here. So we have a couple of new people, and so as you know, we don't introduce everybody, but I did want to see who's new. So Albert Velarde. Albert, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, good morning. I'm Albert Velarde. I work for Smith Bagley Inc. under Ian Hathcock for in the strategic account management department.
Great. And get rid of that. Okay, let's see who else we have joining us this morning. Mylan. Is there anybody else who's new to us? Rich, now you're going to, of course, you were on last time, and we're going to be hearing from you. And I got it right this time, right? Let's see if we have anybody else that's new to us today. Okay.
Chris
Yep.
Pastairs, I don't know who that is.
I'm sorry, who's that, Henry?
There's a name there, Chris Pastairs.
Yeah. Who's that, Chris?
Morning, my name's Chris Pastors. I'm the Economic Development Manager for Coconino County, and I missed last week's, but I received the invitations, and yeah, this is something that it's new to me. But my name's Chris Pastors. I look after economic development for Coconino County. Good
Great.
morning, everyone.
Welcome. Welcome. Glad you could join us. Anybody else that I've missed? Okay. Let's move on to the meeting then. So a couple of things. Again, first of all, I want to thank our sponsors. Actually, let me share this. Show grid. Okay. All righty. So a couple of things. First of all, again, I want to thank our sponsors as always, Care First Health Plan, SPCA, the satellite broadcasting. Steve, I see you're online today. Glad you could make it. Valley of the Sun United Way, Khajiit. Thank you guys for your support to enable us to continue our work here. So I appreciate that. Secondly is, as I've told you many times, if you want to know who's involved with the task force, we do have a form online with those people who have filled out our Google form. There's about 80 some odd people now who have done that. If you haven't, please take a moment to fill out the Google form so that people know who's involved with us and how to contact you in case they're interested. As you may know, since we do registrations, that we do have Henry and Oris who do a great job of capturing the minutes of our meetings and include the registration in there so that you can contact folks. So I wanted to just remind you about that. Secondly, next is that our meetings, well, of course, there's no meeting on July the 5th because of the holidays. There will be meetings the 12th, 19th, and 26th. Just be advised that I will be on vacation during that time, but I will be joining the meetings. There probably will not be newsletters during that time, but I will be sending out the notices of the meetings and that sort of thing. But I will have access to email, so if you need to reach me, you can reach me by phone, text, or email. So if any questions about that.
Where's your vacation?
Pardon?
Where are you vacationing?
We're vacationing in lots of places. We're going to drive. We're taking a road trip, my wife and my son, and we're going to go through Colorado, then going to Minnesota. My wife's sister has a well, actually it belonged to her family, has a cabin on a lake up there. And so we're going to spend some time there. And then my wife's brother has a farm in Springfield, Missouri, and we've spent time there before. And so we're going down there. And then my wife and I are flying back, and my son's going to drive back. So that's kind of our plan at the moment.
Excellent.
So theoretically, I will have internet, but of course, Mark, in case I have an issue, you now have the logistics to log in. Okay.
This is a good time, Steve, to check out the internet access wherever you go.
Yep. Yep. So, so moving on, again, I want to remind you that we do have a newsletter. I've been trying to publish a newsletter every week with all the latest events that are happening, announcements, funding sources, and so forth. Probably not everything that's happening, but as much as I can ascertain about things that are going on, announcements that people send me and so forth, that I've tried to include that. So as you're going to hear with some of the announcements this morning of different events and things like that, you will find the links to those activities in that newsletter, as well as contact information and so forth. So I want to remind you about that. And also you're going to hear from Rich now a little later. And again, all of our presenters, I have their contact information on the meeting webpage and the meeting announcement and so forth. So if you want to contact them, and again, she will also be in the minutes of the meeting. So just want to remind you that a lot of that information is there, hopefully easy for you to find, but you got to check out the newsletter. So moving on, I forgot to change the date here, but let's see. What else do I need to talk about? So Elena, do you want to just talk briefly about your report, learning from home while connected?
Yeah, so we didn't, Common Sense just collaborated on the report, but there's really good information in there that, Steve, I'm not sure, did you share it?
I did. It's on the newsletter. There's also a link on this page, actually in two places, on the agenda and also at the top. You can download that report. Download task force reports and other presentations.
Yeah, I think everybody should really take a look at it. I do think that the information in there is really interesting and something that everybody should take a look at, because it's during COVID. This report was done during COVID, and I think I sent some of the findings out. I didn't know you were going to call on me, Steve, so I don't have it up, so I can't.
That's fine.
I can't specifically speak to the report, but it is something that I think everybody should take a look at.
Yeah, and again, that is in the newsletter with a brief introduction, and then the link to be able to download that report. And again, it's also available on the meeting page if you've checked out the meeting page.
Thanks for doing that, Steve.
Yeah, so thank you, Elena, for sharing that report. So with that, let's just jump into our updates. Jeff, are you online?
I am, Steve. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great.
Good to see you.
Number one, welcome back. Obviously we're excited to hear you guys get back so quickly, and I'm looking forward to having next week off. I'm going to be on vacation next week, so if anyone needs to get a hold of me, this is definitely the week to do it. Just a few really quick updates. Number one, we are working with KPMG, as you guys know, and a consultant. Several of you have received invitations to sit down with KPMG to talk about broadband policy, implementation, a lot of different things. Thank you for getting back and RSVPing. For those of you who are, you should be getting an email from them as early as today, if you haven't already, to set up a time to do that. The NTIA grant, where we asked for potential partners to partner with the state, the response was overwhelming. It was great. We have 25 very credible projects, and we're sorting through them right now, trying to come up with what the best project is. Again, this is just the state partnering with someone. I mean, folks are clearly able to apply on their own for these, but we're very excited. Some of the projects are pretty revolutionary for those communities. For those of you who've been attending our NTIA workshops, we're not going to have one next week because of the 4th of July holiday with everybody gone. Many people gone, including myself. The next one is July 14th, Wednesday at 10 a.m., dealing with sustainable networks. And that's really defined more as implementation strategies, ways to bridge the digital divide, different programs that have worked in other parts of the country. We've got a great panel here from folks here in Arizona to talk about some of the stuff that we're doing. Should be quite interesting. So please do RSVP and attend. It'll be the 14th. It will not be next Wednesday. Our rural broadband development grant, unlike I should say, just about everything else is sort of being held hostage by what's going on at the legislature right now. I've heard some really good feedback in terms of amounts and what they want to do. But obviously they need to get everything passed and adjourned for the year. So we're hoping to get started on that quickly in July, although because it's taken a little bit longer than we thought, it may bleed into August before we're able to put something out the way we had hoped. As you know, there's always terms and conditions with any kind of funding. We have to sort through those and make sure that they're incorporated into the grant the way it should be. So that's really all I had today. Also, Steve, I need to drop at 8 for another call, but if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask now or shoot me a quick note in the chat.
Okay, any questions for Jeff? Hearing none, it's time to move on. So Mala and Holly, I don't know if you're online. You guys want to give us an update, please?
Sorry, one question for Jeff, if I may. So Jeff, in the Tech Council, we track all this stuff closely. I did hear confirmation of $140 million figure that was moving in the budget for broadband. 40 million of that, I assume, is the Flagstaff to California funding for ADOT. And then a 75-25 million split, 75 million for the grant program. Can you define or refine what the other 25 million they're discussing? Understand it's not committed, but what is that split, if you know?
You know, Mark, I've heard 3 different versions of that, and I hate to speculate on something like that.
Okay.
But the figures you're hearing sound about right from what I'm hearing. But as far as exactly what, and this is why I mentioned earlier, just exactly what the terms are, it's really hard to move forward with the grant. I mean, we have an outline, but obviously, you know, where it can be spent and on what type of project is a big part of it. And my understanding is that the 25 has to do with that, expanding it into some areas that it wasn't available last time. But I will wait until I'm handed the final product. But regardless, that's a lot of money, and we're awful excited to get going on this thing.
Absolutely. My understanding is the 75 is for recapitalizing the previous 3 million, and the 25 is more for like digital equity programs, devices, and, you know, programs like that. But that's what I had heard.
Mark, that's, like I said, that's one of 3 different versions of that. So
Okay.
I would actually think that would be a good use of funds, but until I see the final thing, it's really tough to tell. And,
Thanks. Big money though, and the Tech Council lobbyists did confirm that number for me last Friday. That was in what seemed to be the near final budget. Thank you.
yeah, thanks, Mark. And I'll tell you, Steve Zeistra and everybody at the Tech Council have been huge supporters of broadband, and we're very grateful for that support in getting this thing through the legislature.
Okay, anything else for Jeff? If not, Mala and Holly?
Holly is not here today, so I will take it from
Okay.
here. Really excited about the EBB sign up. We have about 95,600 folks that have signed up. Well, this doesn't mean that they've all gotten the internet access paid for, etc. It's just that they have signed up. That's the first step of the process, and the verification through the national verifier. So I'm sure the service providers are taking over from there and getting them signed up. it is exciting to note that some of the libraries have received calls from the service providers saying that they would be willing to give them the devices to distribute. Of course, libraries have not jumped on it yet because it involves paperwork and staffing and FTEs to make sure that they keep track of the devices and distribute it to the people that need, the patrons that have been verified and signed up. So just to let you know that that is happening out there. The ECF window opens tomorrow. Mylan's doing a lot of trainings. I'm doing some trainings for the library folks. Just a couple of days ago, FCC published the FAQs on their website for all the questions that we have been asking. So we're working our way through those and making sure that that is incorporated in the trainings. And that is exciting that FCC finally got around to answering those questions that have been plaguing us ever since they distributed the rules. The other exciting thing is, I think, Steve, you distributed this you shared this information about USDA, FCC, NTIA, all of them announcing an interagency agreement to share information and coordinate the distribution of the broadband deployment federal funding. This is really important because we're getting funding from various sources. We're taking action in various ways. We really do not, it would not be a good use of the funds if it was, if one agency did not know what the other was doing and the funds are not utilized optimally. So if this information is made available, then, with the projects that happen can happen, not that we should not have any duplication, or redundancy, but the redundancy is a deliberate redundancy, not that it was unplanned for lack of information. The NARUC, which is a nonprofit organization, it's the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, and they have a broadband expansion task force. They also participated in this coordination, and it is very exciting to see that all of this is coming together, and the focus is now on no overlap, but serve the underserved and the unserved. So any questions?
Hey, Mala, this is Jeff.
Yes.
I'm a big favor of the coordination for the same reasons you'd mentioned.
Mhm.
There are projects that were funded that probably should have, and it was a function of one agency not talking to another.
Mhm.
That being said, I think we got off easy. I know my counterpart up in Colorado is pulling her hair out right now because they have several USDA Reconnect projects in the pipeline that have all been essentially put on hold so this new group can review them and make sure that there's no problems with them. So luckily, we don't have any major projects. I can't speak for the E-rate stuff, but my understanding is there's going to be some delays as these things are kind of recycled through that review and approval process.
Right, and it will help with the ECF, no doubt, because again, ECF, there is no money for fiber build out unless there is an absolute need and there is no coverage in that area and there's no other way to cover it. And for that, unless we have the data, we're not going to be able to prove that in those areas they really don't have fiber. So this is really, really very important that these agencies are coordinating and ensuring that we have the right data.
Hey, Mala and Jeff, this is Kirk. Well, I've got you both here. And Mark, could you unmute too and chime in for a second? We had a MedTech event, AD Tech Council MedTech event last week, the first in-person event, and Congressman Schweikert was one of our keynotes. And I asked the question of, because a lot of it was about a lot of medical technologies and virus and developing vaccines and so on and so on and so on. And I was the dumb guy in the room that asked the broadband question to help facilitate telemedicine. And the whole room was kind of floored with his answer. And it seemed very political because it was almost as if with all the satellites going up, we don't really have a broadband issue in this state of Arizona.
No.
Jeff's rubbing his head. I almost fell over. So,
Yeah.
so Mark and another one of our associates has kind of started an outreach agenda for educating some of our friends in Congress. Mark, do you want to speak about that? And then maybe.
Yeah, Steve Zylstra was shocked by his answer, and we discussed it at some length at the Tech Council Public Policy meeting on Friday. And a woman from Kaiser, Karen McLean, who handles space terrestrial development related to the space industry industrially, commercially for Kaiser, has actually reached out already to Schweikert's office for a meeting. And none of us believe that the new LEO constellations, provide the big broadband needed by institutional people or by cellular backhaul to deliver 5G and so on and so on. So we are undertaking outreach and hoping for a meeting. And Jeff, I don't know if it will be appropriate for you in your state role. I wouldn't consider it lobbying as much as, informative stuff. So I'll keep you posted, especially if and as that meeting develops.
Yeah, Mark, I'd love to participate. We actually met with Luis Heredia, who I believe he runs the state office for Senator Kelly last week. And there's just there's a digital divide in the industry, and I think there's a digital divide between us and sometimes things that go on in DC. I got to tell you, and Luis was great, and he, we went through and we talked about projects and we talked about stuff like this because it's. Look, I love Starlink. I think it's great. That being said, my understanding, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, from the satellite industry is that I think they have 500,000 people signed up or on waiting. And somebody had told me that the capacity for North America was 1.5 million, if that's accurate or not. So
yeah, that's Steve Hill. I think you may be a little optimistic on that. When you're looking 2020, you're looking 2027. For that.
Right. So the thing is that it's a great product. Don't get me wrong. It's a niche product. It's a great product for rural areas that have no network anywhere near. If you have a cabin, it's fantastic. If you're in a remote site, it's fantastic. That being said, it's no substitute for fiber. And I'd love to have the opportunity, Mark, if you'd like to involve me in that discussion, because I know him a little bit, and I'm really shocked that was the answer, because we have decent sized cities that like places like Kingman that have just horrible broadband right now that need to be upgraded. And if we're thinking satellite, we're way off base on that.
So Jeff and Mark,
it's great in the toolkit. 5G
Absolutely.
cellular, the new LEO generations, not only Starlink, but Project Kuiper, which is Amazon, OneWeb, which is in the sky. These are great additions, but we think Schweikert is uninformed and we'd like to inform.
Absolutely.
So just FYI, that in a couple of weeks, Steve Hill, who you just heard from, who is the executive director of the Satellite Broadcast Association, Steve is going to give an update on what's happening with the satellite. So I believe it's the 19th, Steve, that we scheduled you.
Great.
I think Congressman Schweikert could just benefit from some just fundamental understandings of that world. Because his answer almost seemed like politically canned, based on a talking point, based on if anybody mentions this, here's what we say, which is really kind of what threw us all back. So yeah, some education is definitely needed in bridging yet another digital divide. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Kirk. And, again, I mentioned Starlink. I know that Viasat has a third generation satellite that they're launching. I've met with the Kuiper folks. That's a really interesting business model. So there's stuff coming, but it's nothing in the short term. And it is very much a specialized use. And that doesn't help, if you're trying to attract a factory to your city and you need redundant broadband to run that factory, because so much is automated and so much is done remotely now. Anyway, I'd love to have that discussion, Mark. I'll just leave it at that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Kirk, thanks for bringing it up.
You bet.
And Steve, just to finish up what I had started
go ahead, Mala.
talking about. Yeah, the nonprofit organization, that the coordination that I was talking about, only one of the areas is they talked about proposed recommendations in 5 focus areas. One of them was the broadband program coordination. The 4 others were on broadband mapping, which we've all been crying for a while. The other 3 are to ensure that broadband providers are meeting their obligations. So those who have been given the CARES Act funding or other funding, they will have to meet their obligations and have to meet what they committed for, because this is again federal funding that they have been given. And if they don't meet their obligations and they default on it, that's going to be brought to light. They also are supporting non-traditional providers. So it does not have to be a broadband provider, a utility company, or anyone else that is willing to provide broadband in that area is also supported. And the last thing that they are doing is adopting, for adoption of broadband, trying to give credibility as well as highlight resources for adoption of broadband in the rural areas. So any questions? Otherwise, back to you, Steve.
Okay. If there's no more questions for Mala, let's move on. Janet, you're up.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I have a couple of things I wanted to share. First of all,
Excuse me, Janet, can you just introduce yourself quickly?
Oh, Janet Major, and I am the Associate Director for Outreach Facilities and Education for the Arizona Telemedicine Program and the Southwest Telehealth Resource Center. We now promote and have federal funding for 5 Western states that we serve to promote telehealth. So I have the best job on the team. One of the really great story I wanted to share that just came across through mHealth Intelligence, I think it's called, the publication. I'll put it in chat. It's a wonderful story about Chinle up in Navajo area and how the community really came together in the COVID crisis. We think about communicating things like asking people to be 6 feet apart. Well, up there, the posters are 2 sheep apart is the distance that you need to maintain to be safe. So producing educational materials in Navajo has been really interesting, I'm sure. But one thing that is mentioned in this article, and it really is about Navajo area IHS and all the great work that they've done with iPads, but it really was an amazing project to pull together, because this also included, you may remember hearing about FCC allowing them to use approved use of frequencies normally reserved for emergency first responders. So, people have gotten really creative and done some amazing networking to come up with solutions. And the other thing that they did was they built out some kiosks, which is the kind of model that we started working on back in the late 1990s, to do small kiosks in the chapter houses to then connect people to their primary care providers at the IHS facility. So that's a link that I'll share with you, and it's a great story. It's a great read. The other thing I wanted to share is our team, the Arizona Telemedicine Program, has partnered with the Arizona Department of Health Services to do some informational meetings that are almost like a water cooler series. We've called it virtual office hours, and the topic that I chose for my virtual office hours this Wednesday is emergency broadband benefit program. And fortunately, the A team, the folks that are here on this call, Tracy Beal and her A team, Mala, Nicole, fortunately also the person who really helped is a project manager build out Connect Arizona. I've got a great Connect Arizona slide that I keep sharing every chance I get. But on Wednesday at 2 p.m. we will have 1 hour office hours that will include Q&A. And really the target audience is the folks who work for Arizona Department of Health Services, as well as our Rolodex and network of people in the telehealth space. We want to share with the people who need it the most, all of the information about EBB, as well as answer Q&A. And we don't normally record these, but I would like to record Wednesday so that we can have a standalone short video from the experts all about EBB. And it seems to me that we're going to have to do another one, ladies, because of course we're going to want to do one about the emergency broadband program that, you know, has a really, really short window. 60 days is going to fly. And I also wanted to give a quick shout out to Mauricio, who's really helped get all of this information to the FQHCs. You know, I have a lot of contacts at the federally qualified healthcare centers, but to really have that personal touch and share this information with people that you know by name, I think is what's really helping move things forward. So we're number 9, and I think I can't help but think that we've moved up on that rating, but those are the things that I wanted to share this morning. And I shared the PDF in chat already for the event that is on Wednesday. And then I will share this wonderful article from M Health Intelligence with you as well. Thanks.
And FYI, the link for that event is also in our newsletter. So if you miss it from anywhere else, that is also there for your information.
Thanks, Steve.
Sure. So while we're talking about EBB, I know we're kind of jumping the agenda here a little bit, but since we're talking about EBB so much, why don't we, Tracy, anybody else have any more updates about EBB that we need to talk about?
I honestly think that what Mala has shared and Janet has shared really does cover. We are continuing to go up in the number of people who are accessing that funding, and that's very exciting. And the more that all of us continue to share that, the better that will be. I did want to highlight, I know that Elena mentioned the article, and the link is in the chat, the report, but I did want to say that what you see from that report is underconnection is the major problem of the vast majority of people who are struggling to have internet. And funding is being able to pay for that is the top problem, according to that report. So I think that report is really important to read. It's really well done. So I just want to encourage that.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Tracy. I should have mentioned that point. I'm sorry. Thank you. It's very early for me.
Okay. Anything else on EBB before we move on? Okay, Sophia, are you online? Apparently not. Mylan, I saw you. Is there anything that you want to say about the Department of Ed?
I'm online, sorry, Steve.
Oh, okay.
But Mylan can go first.
Oh, I don't have anything really, Steve. I gave everyone an update last week and looking forward to tomorrow to see what it brings.
Okay. So, Sophia?
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Steve. Sorry, I couldn't get to that unmute button fast enough. The main update is what Mala and Mylan have already shared about the training that Mylan is offering tomorrow. We sent a big email out with Emergency Connectivity Fund resources to the schools late last week. It had information about the program, other trainings that are being offered, and then of course, information about the one that Mylan is offering tomorrow. So we're really hoping that we're doing what we can to make sure schools know about this in spite of the less than ideal timing. The only other update I do want to share isn't as technology related, but something that we're excited about. We shared a bunch of resources for Pride Month last week on our website, and I'll go ahead and throw that link in the chat with schools, and we're really excited about those resources as well.
Okay. Mylan, do you want to add anything?
No, sir. The window opens tomorrow, and I'll be doing a question and answer session on Friday, on the 30th. So the window opens 29th, doing a question and answer session on the 30th. Give everyone a chance to see the new ECF website. If they can't get logged in, I'll be available to help them. If they get logged in and have questions, I'll be there to help them. So I'm just going to bring up the Zoom call, answer questions, and I'll just probably keep the call open majority of the day until there's no one there asking questions or needing help.
Okay, and again, the link for that workshop is also in our newsletter. So again, if you want to know about that workshop and how to participate, that information again is in our newsletter.
Hey, Mylan, Kirk again. Did I see you guys have a new acting CIO that I think this crowd knows pretty well?
Yeah, I saw the announcement go out last week.
Yeah, Chris is an amazing guy. So you got him for like a half a year, at least, they said. So that'd be great to see what might come from that. He's Mr. Smart City, Mr. Smart Campus, Mr. Smart everything. So he's an amazing guy. So we're looking forward to that. Congratulations.
And he's on loan from ASU, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
That is correct.
What is his name, Kirk? His last name?
Chris Richardson, Deputy CIO at Arizona State University, is now the acting CIO for Mylan's Department of Education for at least the next 6 months.
And I apologize for not sharing that. I was not 100% sure if that was public information, but seeing that other people know, it clearly is. So I apologize. Sometimes we get the internal email right before the announcement, and sometimes there's a little bit more lead time, and I just was not sure.
Well, it was posted on social media.
Awesome, good.
Yeah,
now
Chris,
you all know.
and I've worked with Chris for a long time. He's amazing. So it'll be awesome for the Department of Ed.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Leah, are you online? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, Derek? Derek, you there? You were. Okay, I guess he's not there now. And Wes, are you online? Okay. Mylan, is there anything other than what you and Wes presented recently? Anything new about the Final Mile project?
No, the RFPs have been posted. The first 5 RFPs are out there. We're just waiting for, I'm responding to a few technical questions right now, but we're just waiting for the RFP responses to come in.
And just FYI again, that the information, a brief description about that project and a link to their website with the where you can also download those RFPs if you're interested in what's included in those RFPs is available again in our newsletter. Okay, with that, I think we're ready to move on with our agenda. And so I'm pleased to, and unfortunately, John Kelly is not able to join us today, but I want to appreciate him connecting us with Richna Voss, who is the business program manager for Microsoft Airband, which some of you mentioned earlier. So we're really pleased to finally connect with Microsoft about what they're doing here in Arizona. So with that, Richna, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks so much for having me here this morning. I really appreciate it. As Steve mentioned, I'm the business program manager with Microsoft Airband. My focus is on expanding broadband connectivity and digital inclusion programming for both rural and tribal communities. I focus mainly on the West Coast states and the mountain states, and we have a team of people who focus on other areas of the US, and we have an international team as well. So many of you might know that Microsoft's mission is to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. And with Airband, we feel that you can only do that if you connect the unconnected, and we have many who are unconnected. And at this point, we have about anywhere from 16 to 18 million people in the US who are not connected, and about 11 to 14 million of them are in rural areas. So my focus is a heavy rural one to ensure that people are not left out of access to technology in ways that people in the suburban and urban sector take for granted. One of the ways we do this is to vet and select ISP partners regionally and locally. And one of our ISP partners is on today, I believe. Andy Metcalf from Native Network is an ISP partner that is based in Washington State, but works closely with the Pasquayaqui tribe in Arizona. And we are helping him, along with all of our other rural ISP partners around the United States, to expand connectivity in a number of ways. We co-invest with some of these ISP partners. We actually help fund some of their tower build-outs and some of their work in local communities and regionally as well. So we tend to prefer working with regional ISPs that can help us reach as many unserved rural populations and underserved rural populations in multiple states, because our goal is to actually have at least 4 million people under coverage by July of 2022. And right now, we are at or close to 3 million people under coverage through this program. So part of being an ISP partner includes a number of benefits from Microsoft. We provide technical expertise to our Microsoft ISP partners. We help them in the network design phase. We help with our technical engineers help with the setup process. They also help transition many of our ISP partners to Azure-based platforms. We also provide low-cost hardware and low-cost site leases through Crown Castle and access to low-cost fiber through Zayo and Corning Fiber. And in addition to all of that, we think that it's not just important for our ISP partners to get people connected. Once people are connected, we also need to work on adoption, right? So we also need to work on education. So we have a heavy focus on digital skills and educational content. We have a process with our ISP partners whereby once they come on board, we work with them to create a digital skills training page on their website. And Native Network has one. Actually, I have a couple specifically targeting the different tribes that they work with, and I'll leave it to Andy to share that with you when he does his presentation in a couple of weeks. But we work very closely with our ISP partners to make sure that their customers have access to online training, whether it's virtual training through our Microsoft skills-based programs, or whether we have something called the 4-H Tech Changemakers training, where we partner with National 4-H to provide online training to people, or whether it's a specialized skills training program through an entrepreneurial vendor called Generator, where they go in and they work on custom training programs with cohorts, and they actually have a start to finish process whereby they train people and then they work with them and coach them until they are able to get employed, and they actually help them with the employment process. So we have a number of ways of working on digital inclusion that include skills training, but also access to telemedicine, access to distance learning. During COVID, we actually helped fund a number of cows and CPEs for people in the Navajo Nation, just so they could actually engage in some digital learning through the COVID period last year. So we are very actively engaged in unserved and underserved rural communities right now, and we can only do that with ISP partners who work with us on the ground to make sure that we can leverage these resources in a way that makes sense for both rural and tribal communities. So in recent weeks, we've been rolling out with our ISP partners, not just the digital skills training, we've been ramping up our upskilling programs, but we've also paid for our ISP partners to offer a toll-free number through PCs for People. So all of their customers can pick up the phone and call at any time about any technical question, you know, anything from how do I turn on this laptop to how do I fix this operating system issue? There are a whole gamut of questions that they can get answered with a free technical hotline that we provide. We are also in the process of rolling out what's called the White Glove Service Program. So we provide custom training by Microsoft staff through our Microsoft Stores team for any school, staff, families, students, and for any businesses for free with skills, any skills training program on Microsoft products. So we're trying very hard to make sure that we approach this from a comprehensive point of view, not just through connectivity, but also through digital inclusion, through skills training, telehealth, distance learning, agricultural IoT processes, digital transformation through a number of projects on the ground. So we're very excited that it's a good time for broadband expansion, given all of the funding that's coming down the pike. But what we're doing right now is making sure that we work with states and counties to highlight the fact that there's all this funding available. And what we're seeing repeatedly, and this is not what we were expecting, but what we're seeing repeatedly in a number of states where we've met with state broadband officials, we've met with county commissioners and county executives. Many people don't even know what the ECF program is. Many people haven't even heard of the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. And a number of county administrators are so overwhelmed by all of the money that's coming down that they're not quite sure how to develop a strategy to deal with the broadband portion of the Treasury funding that's coming to them. So what we try and do is step in and say, okay, let's work together. Let's work with the counties. Let's work with the schools. Let's try to leverage all of this funding to maximize states and counties accessing this kind of funding for broadband build-outs, and also for digital inclusion, for digital skills training. Because as you know, some of the state and local fiscal recovery funds includes expenses for digital skills training. So we're trying to help counties and we're trying to help states develop strategies. Not every state, not every county is as well organized as Arizona. I wish other states had a task force just like this, because I think it would help tremendously. When I listen to all of you speak, when I listen to Mala, when I listen to Janet, I wish other areas of the United States had a task force as well structured, well organized, and well functioning as this. So, you know, I think I'd like to bring some suggestions from what I'm seeing with this task force to other communities that I'm dealing with, because I think it would really help them if they had a structure such as this to guide them. Are there any questions for me?
Questions, anybody? Can't believe there's not questions. It's an amazing resource.
I mean, as far as EBB goes, what could be the best short-term strategy, do you believe? Because we know that the funding is limited. So what would be, with your experience, what suggestions would you have?
So what we did was, and I'll give you a prime example. We have a partner in California called cal.net. And we actually worked with them to set up the EBB site. We actually helped their marketing website vendor create a site that they are promoting heavily to all of their customers. So they promote through print media as well as through web outputs on what they're trying to offer with the EBB. They're trying to get the word out through radio marketing as well. So what we do is we offer a no-cost option to our ISP partners. We set aside additional devices that our partners can give to the neediest of their customers. in addition to the low-cost devices and the low-cost subscription. So we work with our ISP partners to try and get this word out in as many ways as possible. I'll give you an example. I was in a meeting in Missouri where I was presenting to a group of unserved and underserved tribal customers in Missouri. And we were asking the residents for feedback on what they thought they needed in terms of being connected and what they saw as pitfalls and pros. And none of them knew about the EBB. None of them knew that they could have low-cost subscription options, even though all of them were entitled to it. And we were asking them what ways we could work to help get the word out. And they just said, you know, we wish that our tribal administrators would be able to give us this information. We wish that our councils would share this information. And same thing with rural communities. They are looking to their local governments to help spread the word about this. When local governments are at this time struggling to hire people back into their task force, you know, they're dealing with a number of issues that are preventing the word from getting out. So we are trying to step in and help in whatever way we can to get the word out on EBB. But short of ISPs going out there and really pushing this for their customers, it's been an uphill challenge in other areas.
Thank you.
So Mauricio, you might just tell her briefly about, you know, who you are and who the kind of people you're working with.
Well, as Steve mentioned, my name is Mauricio Orozco, and I happen to work for one of the Access Health Plans, which is Medicaid, well known in other states as Medicaid. And as you know, all of our members qualify for the EBB because of the income guidelines. So I don't know if your organization has done any work with Medicaid health plans, because most of their members would qualify for something like this.
Yeah, I actually think we have, and let's reconnect offline, Mauricio, and we can talk more about reaching out to this subset of the population. So let's reconnect after this call.
Sure, and I think bringing up the whole getting back to work, I guess, initiative, it's a really good time for that right now, because at the beginning, it was all focused mainly around education. You know, when the whole pandemic hit, it was about, you know, kids being on the virtual environment. And now telehealth grew exponentially throughout the country. So telehealth became big. But I think now with unemployment benefits and all the additional benefits that came with the pandemic, those are going to be ending probably, I think, in July, I've heard. So I think those efforts of getting everyone back to work and how broadband plays a big role in that, you know, when you're filling out applications, et cetera, I think that would be a good strategy because it hits a lot more people.
So I've been trying to work with the local workforce development agencies, the one-stop centers, to see if we can actually roll out some of our online skills training through these sites. And I don't even get calls back in some areas, which is sad because it's a free service that we're trying to provide. We want to get people back online and back to work, and we want people to be able to have sufficient skills that they can opt for remote work. And that's not necessarily the case. And that's some of what we're trying to do with tribal communities. We're trying to work closely with tribal administrations to say, okay, here are all of these offerings, here are all of the ways we can help. The trouble is adoption, and the trouble is inertia and complacency, not necessarily just with tribal communities, but also with rural communities. And that is an uphill battle. That is a challenge that we're facing, and we're doing everything we can to work with local community centers, to work with local nonprofits, to work with local governments to get this information out there. But unless people are motivated to want to engage in these resources, there's really not much you can do to entice them.
So Richna, if I can make a couple of, and others may have questions also, but you of course have mentioned local working with ISP partners. And if I understand correctly, that, excuse me, that Native Network is your partner here in Arizona. And Andy Metcalf is going to be presenting next week. He's the CEO of Native Networks.
Yes, and he's presenting on the 12th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's not next week because it's the 4th of July, but the week after on the 12th, that Andy is going to be presenting about, what they're doing here in Arizona. But let me ask you, Rich, because we have some folks who are involved in education and workforce development and economic development and so forth who were on this task force. So how is the best way for us to work with you to take advantage of all of these resources that you have available? Is that through Andy, through you? Do we have a separate meeting? How is the best way for us to understand more about how to take advantage of the resources that you bring to the table?
So with Andy, we're trying to work on reaching tribal communities. And so if there is any tribal outreach, we usually appreciate working with Andy to do that. In terms of the larger scope, let's just say, for instance, the White Glove Service program for schools and businesses. I think we can definitely set up a separate time, and I can actually get the folks from our Microsoft Stores team to meet with folks to talk about how this would roll out, because I think that's an important tool. I mean, if you know that you can have access, your schools can have access to free training on Microsoft products, whether it's Excel or Power BI, I mean, why wouldn't you leverage that if it would help you and if it would help your employees? So I think we can set up a separate time to get this rolled out and to get the people that are actually going to roll out the program to talk to community folks about how we can reach your organization or your community through that White Glove Service program.
So Marcelino, I believe you're online. Do you have any thoughts or comments?
Sorry, I was kind of just emailing regarding the adoption of systems. I guess I think like this well, I heard about the one-stops. I know that in the Phoenix area, they really have been promoting the Amazon Web Services, and here locally in Pima County, seems like the Google platform has gotten in with Pima Community College, and that's what seems to be promoted. And yeah, it's just kind of like what are the businesses actually using in the area? I've never have known as far as like, the businesses are supposed to be using these systems and hiring based on the certifications that we provide them. But, I have not seen a survey of what systems are being used by and adopted by businesses, especially for, cloud services. So, yeah, that's one of the things I was looking at is how do we get to the clients is one thing, but how do you get to the businesses? I think reaching the businesses, that's where we'll probably have more success in adoption of whatever platforms come to the area. I believe in all the systems, but I guess there's preferences along the way. So I'm sorry, I'm sure I missed the question.
So just Rich, and just for your information, so Marcelino is involved with workforce development in Pima County down here in Tucson and Pima County, and so he's been a real advocate for EBB and so forth. So and I sit on the IT advisory committee for Pima Community College, and they're developing a whole center of excellence. And I'm sure, there's just tons of stuff happening here in Arizona of people who would want to take advantage and coordinate with you guys.
So Sharika, Mala, and Cindy had questions.
Yes, I'm Cindy Hogan. I'm an AmeriCorps volunteer and just kind of joined this task force and have been kind of going throughout the community and interviewing different government organizations or departments and community benefit organizations. And my experience is that it's less inertia, it's more that people are so focused right in the moment on what their concerns are and taking care of those. And yet if we could open up and share the experiences we're having, or share best practices or things we're discovering, I'm finding that I believe that would be a huge benefit, but it's really hard to organize that. Like I say, people are just down and focused on what they're doing, but there's so much that could be shared if there was some sort of, and not everybody gets to this. And oddly enough, the internet is the revolutionary communication technology, and yet communication to me is the one thing that's missing through this, because the topic of digital adoption is not what you heard that how a congressman was looking at satellite. It's just not, it hasn't kind of raised to a level where people understand there's information to be had along those lines. It feels like yeah, and that's part of what I'm trying to work toward, is elevating the issue so it becomes daily language in a city or Pima County. And it's really hard to get that attention, because how do you grab it by sending one more email or posting one more thing on a website? It's really difficult. So I'd be curious to know how you've seen other communities get that sort of conversation going on a level that people can participate. Even, and I've gone to rural communities and people don't know how to ask the questions, never mind find the answers.
So Cindy, I usually, when I have a meeting with a group of county executives, I usually ask for the school administrators to be there, the school district representative to be there as well, because it doesn't help me to have these conversations in silos. I need everyone at the table so that there's a strategy in place. And that's not always easy to do. And the schools will tell you what the issues are, the county administrators will tell you what the issues are, but in the end, we want to help them come up with a plan to say, okay, so how do we work with our ISP partners to address some of this? And in some cases, we have to address it through emergency connectivity by just getting a cell on wheels on site, just so a school can actually engage in distance learning, or a tribe might be able to work on telehealth and distance learning at the same time. So there are a number of ways we do this, but getting as many people from different facets of a community at the table to have this conversation is really the way to go. And we have to do it a single community at a time, and this takes time. We try and do it from the macro scale, and we try and do it at a grassroots level concurrently. That's our approach.
The difficult part is to hear all the funding being released and not to have a plan in place, or even a triage of priorities. And at least, I'm hearing a lot of the bigger broadband things, but the adoption piece, how are we going to use those monies and where would we put them? We really don't know. So,
and not, as I said, not everyone is like Arizona. You've at least got a plan here. In some states, they don't have a plan. The state has no intention of stepping in. The state has no intention of submitting an application. They're leaving the counties to do this on their own. And so now you've got multiple counties competing with each other in one state for a very limited pool of money. 288 million is not very much for 50 states and territories. So when you've got multiple counties in one area all competing with each other, that's not a good strategy. And so what we're trying to say is, okay, if the state's not going to do anything, can you come up with a consortium of counties and in a whole district to apply for funding instead? So having a regional application might be the way to go with NTIA. So we're running into different scenarios in different states, but it's just not been easy to see the lack of standardization or the lack of a cohesive approach to tapping into this funding, because it's all coming down at once. And that is overwhelming for administrators to deal with.
So Rich, and I know that other people have some questions, but I did want to touch on one thing in particular, and you sort of mentioned this, that from the day that Jeff Sabatka came on board, that he's been a real advocate of helping local communities to do plans. And that's hopefully some of the funding, if we get the funding from the legislature, is to help communities to do either community plans, county plans, regional plans, and so forth. Is that something that you guys can help with? So Jeff's been a real advocate of creating broadband action teams. And so is that something that you guys can help with?
So it usually depends. That is something that I've been working on with different counties and different states on. But yeah, I would like to talk to Jeff more about it, actually. I mean, I know that Native Network right now is working in Pima County, but it is in our best interest and their best interest if they're considering expanding on a larger scale. And we would definitely want to work with Jeff on how that would happen. So yes, I would like to have a conversation with Jeff to discuss that.
Other questions, comments?
I have a question about
This is Sharika.
Okay.
I had a quick question in regards to your your digital inclusive programming. It says in rural and tribal communities. Does the programming, like for the tribal community, have to take place in a tribal community, or could it be the tribal population attending it somewhere else, like in partnership with you on that? Like I know a nonprofit that focuses on that, but they're not actually in the tribal community, but he's of the tribal community.
So yes, it can take place offsite. As the point is to reach as many unserved or underserved residents as possible. So if there are tribal residents that are living outside of the reservation, yes, I mean, we want to be able to get the resources to them as best as we can.
Okay, thank you.
So Sharika, have you, would you let me know about this nonprofit offline that you're talking about?
I will copy you in an email.
All right, thank you. Mala, you had your hand raised, so.
Yes, yes, I just wanted to talk to you about some initiatives that we did and that we're doing ongoing, and I'd really like to connect with you offline to further some of those initiatives. Yeah, the state library actually set up, when the pandemic hit, the state library set up a Connect-Arizona site, and I'll send you the link as soon as I finish talking, or if anybody else has the link, they can put it up. This site actually, the first thing it did was to show people where there is free Wi-Fi available and that people can go to, and libraries. I haven't heard you mention libraries, so I'm stressing that, that this partnership would be really great with libraries. We have libraries, we have 222 library buildings all over Arizona, including the rural areas, and they all offer free Wi-Fi. So this project, the Connect-Arizona project, actually did it on a map, and then added layers of where else that is available. Thank you, Janet, for putting that in the chat. And then we added other, commercial places like, a coffee shop or a McDonald's or anywhere where there's free Wi-Fi. But the site has gone on to add other free resources for digital, as a part of the digital adoption process. We also set up a helpline at the State Library with trained staff. We have 6 of them now, including a project manager who is a tribal and speaks a tribal language and promotes the helpline to tribes, and they answer any question that a patron may have, a patron in the sense, anyone in the community. I want to connect to my doctor. I have a telehealth appointment. How do I connect? Or how do I access the site? Or how do I turn on my iPad? I lost the password. Now I can't get to it. And, things like that. To more serious, my job requires me to learn Excel. Where are the free resources for me to learn Excel? Those kind of things. So we're now in the process of using CARES Act funding to set up a digital literacy package, training package. And that's where I think it would be great to collaborate with you. This is to improve online skills, and the training is free for anyone. We have one of these 6 trained staff will guide them through it for the very first time that they get on it, and then be available for consulting if they can't work their way through the project. But we're hoping that with an initial one-on-one contact with them, they can walk them through the site, and hopefully there will be some self-learning going on. But we're doing a lot for broadband adoption through our libraries, several initiatives, but the initiatives actually touch on what are your pain points? What is it that you really need to get done that you're not able to get done because you don't really have the internet skills to do it? And this, of course, means that we have to promote getting internet access to them. And the EBB program is being promoted heavily through our libraries right now. So that's what we're working on. And I'd certainly love to touch base with you on how we can, work on the online skills training to reach the people who actually need it most.
You are way further ahead than most other areas that I know of. So kudos to you for doing what you're doing. That's fantastic. And it would definitely help supplement our white glove service program. So yes, let's talk offline. I definitely think we have to connect here on that. We do work very closely with libraries. We do have conversations about how to leverage ECF funding to make sure that we can address at least devices to library patrons to encourage remote learning and remote access, while our ISP partners work concurrently with the county or with the state to leverage funding for broadband build out. So it's a concurrent conversation we have with the schools and libraries, as well as with county officials on leveraging all aspects of funding. And right now, ECF funding is key, and not as many people in other states are aware of that and know what to do with that. So we're trying to get the word out to the libraries as well on leveraging that funding. But I'd love to be able to connect with you on this, definitely.
Thank you, Rachna. I put my contact in the chat.
Thank you. Appreciate
that. Rachna, since we're running out of time here, I just want to wrap up quickly. Again, you're now on our email list, so you'll get a summary of the meeting today, including all the folks who were on the call with their contact information. So I wanted to mention that. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, that Andy Metcalf with Native Network is going to be presenting next week. But it seems to me, well, I guess I want to say one other thing. Our state library is phenomenal. They are doing amazing stuff in the digital access, digital inclusion initiatives, which you've kind of already heard about. And they could probably talk to you some more about all that stuff. But I just want to say that. But there's also a lot of other nonprofit organizations who are on this call who are doing great stuff. And it seems to me there's lots of potential for partnership with you and what you're doing. And so perhaps maybe after Andy's presentation next week, that maybe we schedule a separate call specifically to talk more about a good strategy for how to work with you. You know, again, all these organizations are more than welcome to contact you individually but it
Yeah.
seems that having some kind of a state strategy might be even more beneficial for us.
I think so. I would really appreciate that. I just am thrilled that I got a chance to connect with everyone today and to hear about strategies that I think would be, you know, applicable to other areas that I'm dealing with. But thank you for at least having me on this call and allowing me to engage.
Perhaps we can be a good model for you to
I think so.
duplicate in other places.
I think so, very much so. Thank
Great.
you again.
Well, thank you, Rich, and I really appreciate it. I'm glad we finally connected with you guys. So I'll have to thank John for that link. Any other questions, any announcements, anything that's happening? Again, want to drive you to our newsletter page. We've got a lot of the information about a lot of the different events and activities and resources on that page so that you don't have to search around. Not to say that it's everything that's happening everywhere, but hopefully to give you a good sense of the key initiatives, at least that I'm aware of. So with that, again, no meeting next week. I hope you all have a safe and happy holiday, 4th of July holiday, and then we'll see you on the 12th.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Stay well, Steve. Don't
Thank you.
overdo your vacation.
Well, I'm fine now, so.
Thank you. Yeah, the Arizona heat can get to you.
Yep. So we're
Thanks
gonna,
all. Have
unfortunately,
a good
we'll have to go sit on the lakeside for a while and go boating and stuff. So sounds like it's gonna be a tough vacation. Okay, well, thank you all. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
You bet.